Good morning, everyone. Once again, thanks for joining me. If you're joining me live, thanks for checking me out. If you're showing the recording, it's actually Saturday, and it's felt like it's been Saturday all week. I don't know why, but I'm excited. Today's Saturday. On Saturdays, I really enjoy this 15 minutes because it gives me a chance to review the notable news of the week. Um, and just as a reminder, I post articles on my LinkedIn every day throughout the week. When I post an article, I give a review, I suggest some action points or takeaways, offer some encouragement, and then I always provide a link to the article. So if anything you hear me talk about today, if you want to get access to the article, just go to my LinkedIn page, find it on one of my posts, click, bang, go. So it was a pretty busy week. I think a lot of good news, some fun news, and let's start with fun news. So on Monday, I posted an article about Ferrari's first electric car, and it's a fun little article. The thing is, the car is going to retail for $530,000, so over $1 million, and it's one of their most expensive cars. Their average car is $350,000, so this is significantly more than their average car. It's interesting because the article points out, and by the way, this has nothing to do with real estate or mortgage. It's just found it interesting. The article points out that it's a bit of a risk for Ferrari because Ferrari's brand image is that of the full throttle roar of an engine. And of course, an electrical engine doesn't have that. And so it's a little bit of a brand risk. But regardless, they have a giant wait list and it's going to be a hugely popular. In my LinkedIn post, I opined what do interest rates have to get to before we see the first real estate agent or loan officer driving around in one of these? 3%, 2%. We'll see. Undoubtedly, we'll see somebody, one of our brethren, driving around in one of these. They're going to be hard to get though. So now the second article on Monday I posted was the economics of debt financing. This is a very important article. It's an important article to understand if you're a professional in mortgage or real estate. And here's what the article says. The article essentially says, look, the United States sells debt, but it's not the Fed that sets the interest rate. It's the buyer. It's always going to be the buyer. So while we, put all our focus on is the Fed going to cut rates? Are the Fed going to cut rates? It's really going to be immaterial over time because the market's going to set what the rate has to be. Because if the Fed were to cut rates too low, nobody would buy the debt. And the government has to sell the debt. If nobody buys the debt and the Fed ends up having to step in to buy its own debt, that is massively inflationary, massive. Because all that is the Fed injecting liquidity into the economy, which will 100% explode inflation. That's why the Fed has cut down on buying debt. It's trying to restrict, it's trying to tighten. But when it buys debt, it's a very loose policy. So it needs to have outside buyers. And what in the economics of debt financing from Adam Tooze, which in his daily newsletter, the Daily Chart Book, what he says is, look, the amount of debt the U.S. Treasury is selling has multiplied 4x in 15 years. And that, today, the characteristics of those people buying debt have changed, as has the nature of it. There aren't buyers interested in buying long-term debt, long-term Treasury debt, which is what's forcing the Fed to sell all short-term debt. They're selling a ton of short-term debt, and it's going to banks, money markets, hedge funds, insurance funds, among other places, right? And that's one of the things people go, gosh, why didn't the Fed sell a bunch of 30-year debt when interest rates were at 2%? Well, the fact is nobody would have bought it. That's why they didn't do it. There wasn't buyers, at that level. That's why they didn't sell it. It's not like the Fed was stupid. But this is something to keep an eye on. And there's a lot of really good articles about this. As a matter of fact, John Malden's thoughts from the front line today is a 1,500 word newsletter on this topic, and it's awesome. I will most likely do a lengthy post on it, so look for that post to be out maybe Monday. But we need to familiarize ourselves about who actually controls the interest rates, and it's not the Fed. You need to understand this, right? Now, moving on to Tuesday's articles. We started with Freddie Mac's second mortgage pilot. And so Neil Pearson of the Housing Wire had a really good synopsis of this. FHFA grants conditional approval for Freddie Mac's second mortgage pilot. Now, this has been fascinating. This whole Freddie Mac getting into seconds has been a fascinating kind of carnival because first, I'm not exactly certain how that fits their charter or their mission. I don't remember seeing providing affordable housing, affordable financing avenues for the average family in America, which essentially is their charter. How that translates into providing seconds, but they say it does. Good for them. There was a lot of fear when Freddie started to socialize this concept, and as you can imagine, the people who are against it are the people in that space. So lenders that currently do equity seconds, HELOCs, fixed rate seconds, they threw a tizzy, right? And as did some of the private market participants that want to get into that equity space. Their argument was the private market is doing fine. We don't need the government competing with us, essentially. And they threw a tantrum. And they had a lot of advocacy groups, a lot of industry groups supported that. It wasn't until FHFA really limited the size of the pilot. And so what FHFA did is he said, "Hey, look, Freddie, we're gonna let you do this pilot, but you can only issue $2.5 billion in debt on this, and you can only run the pilot for 18 months." That's a non-story. That amount of volume is negligible. It doesn't even have an impact, right? So they completely, took away the power of the program. Now, what the program's going to be is you have to have an owner-occupied house. You've had to own it for 24 months. If you did, you can borrow up to $78,277 on this program. And like I said, they can only do $2.5 billion, which should take about 3 seconds to fill, and is really negligible. And I say that analysts from in the article, analysts from Bank of America said they thought the potential equity market is about $850 billion. So they thought that if this market was completely unrestricted, Fannie and Freddie could do as much as $850 billion. And that would move the market, by the way. If you think that we're going to do $1.6, $1.7 trillion, and if you gave us access to be able to originate another 800 billion, we'd go from peasants to princes. It'd be really change the dynamics of our industry. But it's amazing. Special interest groups kind of killed this. We'll have to see what happens. I can tell you, Fannie is chomping at the bit to be able to do the same thing. They're waiting for direction from FHFA to do so. I think you're going to see this program be a huge success, and that FHFA will expand it. They're just trying to make it palatable to the industry. But a really interesting article. Now, next on Tuesday, I did a post on hybrid work has changed meetings forever. It was really an article about Zoom meetings, about online meetings. I referenced two articles in my post. First, hybrid work has changed meetings forever, from Erica Bellini and Beth Schwarting from the Harvard Business Review. And then also, no, remote employees aren't becoming less engaged, by Andre Botsky and Mike Tolliver, also Harvard Business Review. It was an interesting post. It just speaks to how meetings have changed since the pandemic. And here are some of the statistics. Meetings are up. We have more meetings than ever. They're up 60% since from 2020 to 2022. Matter of fact, from 2021 to 2023, they've gone from an average of, I think it was 8.5 meetings per week to now an average of 10.32. 10.32 is a lot of meetings per week for the average, employee to have. Other kind of interesting statistics, the length of meetings is shortened by 25%. It's gone from 43 minutes to 33 minutes. The average size of participants has actually dropped in half. The average meetings used to be about 20 people. Now they're 10 people. The amount of spontaneous meetings is up by 66%. So we're having, we're having a lot more meetings. We're having them more frequently. The length of the meeting is shorter, and fewer people are attending the meetings, and we're having more spontaneous meetings. Now, all that's interesting enough, and I challenge people, do we need to have this many meetings? Now, I'm a big believer in meeting, but your meetings have to have, you have to bring total value. They can't be casual. But here's what's interesting in the article. What the authors then extrapolated is that they could start to determine retention signals by how people participate in these meetings, and that's the part that I really got the most out of. And so there's a thing called no participation, and no participation means you're on mute the whole time. Now, understand this is not a good statistic, because if you log onto a meeting and say, "Good morning, everybody," or say "present," or say one word, well, you've participated. You can then mute yourself the rest of the meeting, and you're, for this statistic, considered participated. But regardless, about 7% of people don't participate at all, never get off a mute. However, for people that are about to leave the company, that number is 9.6. And so if you see, people who are at risk participate less, right? And then same thing with people on camera. About 32% of people are on camera. And by the way, I'm an advocate. If you're not on camera, you can't be in the meeting. But let me get on my soapbox. But only 18% of people that are about to leave the company are on camera. So the less you participate in the meeting and the less you're on camera, the more likely it is that you're at risk of leaving. And in fact, people that leave a company have 67% fewer spontaneous meetings and attend 22% fewer meetings than their peers. So just know, you can check that out. There's retention signals in Zoom behavior if you want to pay attention to it. All right, let's get on to Wednesday. Wednesday had one kind of fun thing and one serious thing. The fun thing was the average cost of weddings has risen to $30,000. That's up. It's actually $33,000 today. It's up $4,000 since last year. Kind of, and that 30,000, that 33,000 is for wedding sizes of 75 to 100. If you had a wedding for over 200 people, that number goes up to $42,000 on average. And if you have a wedding for over 500 people, that number goes up to $55,000. The average venue cost is the most expensive part of a wedding, costs about $10,700. But the point of me posting this wasn't to talk about the cost of weddings. The point of me bringing this up is that as people spend on average $33,000 for a wedding and spend upwards of $100,000, that's a life event that oftentimes requires them to dip into either savings or equity into their home, which is just a call to action on why we need to stay connected to our past clients, because we don't know what life event they're about to experience. But if we're connected to them, we can be there to help them with solutions. It's just another one of those things, whether it's having kids, sending your kids to college, starting a business, an investment opportunity, buying another property. There's all sorts of reasons why people need to access the equity in their home. So the other article I posted on Wednesday was "Zombie Mortgages Come Back to Haunt Property Owners" by H. Dennis Beaver from Kiplinger. I actually also posted an article from NPR. I posted 2 articles on this. And what zombie mortgages are is if you had a mortgage back from like 2000, the great financial crisis or recession, you had a second, you thought that it was forgiven or scrubbed off or disappeared and you don't owe it. Well, now that people are sitting on massive amounts of equity, collectors are coming back to get that lien paid off with penalties and interest. And so it's a growing problem. It kind of makes you feel kind of dirty when you read it, because it just seems wrong. But check it out so you can get in front of it to help your clients. You're going to have clients that face this, so let's be a power to help them, kind of thing. All right, so moving on. Thursday, I posted kind of an interesting article, and that was "The Positive Effect of Fed Hikes on Consumer Spending." It's by Torsten Slok from the Daily Spark. And here's essentially what it says. With the higher interest rates right now, right, investors have earned an extra $500 billion in interest payments from their money market accounts. And then they take that $500 billion, that the money they weren't earning in money markets, they now take it and they spend it, and then that spending becomes inflationary. So inflationary starts to have a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? We raise interest rates to slow inflation, people earn more money on interest, and then they spend more, right? And so it's an interesting loop. I wouldn't quite call it a doom loop, but it does have influence and something to pay attention to. When you start thinking, why is inflation sticky? Well, think of loops like this, right? So a really interesting article. That gets us to Friday. Friday, I posted a quick infographic from Visual Capitalist on mapping median income by state. Really interesting if you just kind of look at it. And by the way, Visual Capitalist has great charts, and then they usually have an accompanying article. The chart's really all you need. But if you look at the chart, you can see probably the highest income to lowest cost of living is in the upper Midwest, right? And of course, why the highest income total is on the West Coast, but so is the highest cost of living. but it seemed like the sweet spot is the upper Midwest. Down in the South, you have low income but low cost of living. You can check it out. Pretty easy graph to see. Now, I did on my next one yesterday, the next article I posted, I actually spoke quite a bit about it, and that was the article's "What a Refi Wave Won't," why a refi wave won't save every lender and how to prepare, by Garth Graham. I actually did my 15 minutes live yesterday on this topic. I was ranting. I think I went long, so sorry. Thank you guys for listening. Garth Graham, it's current insights from the Stratmore Group. I love this article. I could have wrote this article. It tells you why refis won't save the day. If you're a lender, you've just been losing your behind the last 8 quarters, and you're just clinging on, hoping that volume picks up, rates drop down, refis come back. Graham, this argues, look, you got a whole bunch of, challenges to that strategy. I strongly suggest that if you're in the mortgage business, read that article. Strongly suggest it. Really good. There's headwinds. Servicers are much better at retaining customers today. Consumer Direct has much more powerful platforms, better technology, correct pricing, compensation. There's all sorts of reasons why Graham argues why it'll be hard for traditional IMBs to win the business, but then he does end the article with 4 things you can do to position yourself to have the most success possible. So he ends it positively. I had another posting yesterday, which was just a simple chart. I posted a PCE inflation / unemployment rate / inflation goal chart. It was from Michael Batnick from the Irrelevant Investor. He has really quirky, interesting stuff. But the whole point is just a visual. If you looked at that chart, it makes it appear that the Fed may be approaching, a landing spot where they could start to lower rates, as inflation is starting to get to their goal, unemployment is starting to tick up. You could argue that they could start dropping rates. Now, that also, there's evidence to the contrary, like who's going to buy the debt at lower interest rates. So it's hard to say. That's why I think rates are going to be higher for longer. I keep thinking rates are going to be higher for longer, but maybe we get a rate drop in September, depending on how the data comes. If not December, maybe September. If not September, maybe December. Maybe, I still think probably 1 cut this year. It's possible for 2. It's also possible for 0. It just really depends on how the data comes. It'll also be interesting to see how just the group psychology is of the country given the election going on. I really thought that this Fed would not really be swayed by politics, and I don't think they'll be swayed by politics, but I do think they'll be swayed by national psychology, meaning if Americans start to get depressed over the possible outcome of the election, that could impact their consumption behavior, which then the Fed would have to react to. So it's just a complicated environment. All we can do is stay informed, try to get as much information as we can as possible. I posted another quick chart, might have an article attached to it, median annual wage for real estate agents by Emily Peck and Felix Salmon from Axos Markets. Just kind of tells you what real estate agents earn across the country. It's a heat map, so the greener it is, the more they earn, the whiter it is, the less they earn. On average, they earn about $50,000 across the country, which is really not a lot, given that, and this is not denigrating UPS drivers, but given that the average UPS driver earns $160,000, $50,000 for a real estate agent doesn't seem quite enough. But I move on. Today, I'm posting a few posts. They're all good. The first one, which is really interesting, this is something that I think is a good conversation piece to share with your folks. So the name of the article is Home Sales Tend to Rise After Big Elections. Can It Happen in 2025? That's the name of the article. And it's by Jimmy Burgess and David Childers, and it was published in Inman News. And it's worth reading. It has 3 really good charts that I would use just to encourage people. I would use these in my presentations. I'll give you the cheat sheet, really simple. So, the year following a presidential election, sales go up as in units, meaning we sell more units of home after a presidential election, the year following a presidential election. And you just go see these charts. It's super self-apparent, really easy. Sales volume goes up, home prices go up, mortgage rates decrease. So it's like the perfect environment. We sell more homes, The homes appreciate faster, rates drop. Perfect environment. And it's something like, for all these three things, it's like 8 out of the last 10 elections. And the anomalies that were to the opposite side were minimal, but if you see it, it's compelling. It's, it cheers all up a little bit. Now, I also posted an article today about it's the title of the article is Farmers' Financial Pain Spills from Kansas Wheat Fields to Main Streets by Heather Schlitz, and that was from Forbes. And here's what it said. Farm income has been dropping. It's going to drop 25% year over year. That's significant. Expenses have dramatically increased. I think the article cited something like 40%. That's the cost of land, cost of seed, cost of fertilizer, cost of water, cost of labor, cost of delivery are skyrocketing. So, lower income, higher costs, and it's resulting in all sorts of problems, including the local businesses supporting farms. Their businesses down, depending on the type of business, 20-30% year over year. A lot of these farms aren't going to make it, which I think is a tragedy. I think we need as many farms as possible. But the silver lining is, as farms fail, often that land gets converted to housing. And so in these farming communities, I think you're going to see more and more housing opportunity, which might cause a little bit more realignment in the country as people, try to find affordable housing and move to places that they can afford. So keep an eye on that. It's something to have conversations about, kind of interesting. Quickly, just I'm going into tomorrow because I really cover from Monday to Sunday on this Facebook Live. It's kind of fun thing. Tomorrow morning I talk about Las Vegas weddings. I know it's 2 wedding posts this week, kind of odd. But surprisingly, Las Vegas had record amount of weddings in April. They had, by far, by the way, a giant record. They had, I think it was 10,000, or no, Clark County, which is Las Vegas, where Las Vegas is, had 7,963 weddings in April, which is 35 times the amount of weddings they had in the same month in 2020. And in fact, the most popular, the Little Whitechapel, averaged 265 weddings per day in April. And that is by far a record. So there's back, not only pre-pandemic, but new records. And it's so as you look at this, and the article is kind of interesting, at Little Chapel, you can get married going through the drive-through tunnel of love ceremony, $80. That's 3 green chips, 1 red chip if you're a gambler, $80. And if you want the full Monty, like the whole Elvis wedding, the Elvis tribute wedding is $495. So there you go. And that compares, as we already know, the average wedding in the United States is $33,000. So you save a heck of a lot by going through the drive-through. Interesting statistic. The wedding industry accounted for $2.5 billion in total sales in 2022, supporting 18,000 jobs. So there you go. And that's probably all the wedding stuff I'm going to post for months. I can't imagine doing it again. I finished the week with an article from Luke Babbitt in the Iming News, 12 ways to build strong lender relationships for happier clients. I'm not going to go through this. I see we're running late. The thing is, okay, agents, use your lending partner as a value prop. Good plan. I think that's a really good plan. Try to figure out how you earn. No, that sounded bad. I don't mean that. Fortify why you charge 3% by adding, overwhelming value, including, the service providers you bring to your clients. It's a good article, super positive. I don't know how I just put a little negative tint on that. I didn't mean to. But check it out. Check out all my stuff on LinkedIn. I will just note I did pin 2 articles myself in LinkedIn, so I posted 2 of my own articles. I know it's hard to find. I don't think you get notification. You got to go. I don't even know how to get it to it. I barely even know how to post them, for that matter. But if you click on my articles, you'll see I have about a dozen posted there over the last couple months. An article just means, look, it was longer than a post would allow. I think for a post you can do 3,000 characters. And so, my articles are usually 700 to 1,000 words. I posted two last week. One, I really, I enjoyed doing, and I strongly believe. It's titled "The Essential Role of Sales Leaders in Mortgage Lending." I think I posted that maybe on Wednesday. No, I posted that on Thursday. And then I also posted, it was really just a summary of, the name of my article is "The Current Housing Market Detailed Summary." and it's really just summarizing the state of the nation's housing report by the Harvard Joint Center for Housing Studies. That report was like 92 pages. I summarized it down into like 500 words. Interesting statistic if you want to just get a sense of where housing is in the United States. And just to give you some, kernels from it, housing costs are up 47% since 2020. That's ownership costs. They've gone 40%, 47% in less than 4 years. Rental costs are up 26%. About 20 million homeowners spend more than 30% of their income on their housing. Over 22 million renters spend more than 30% of their income on rent. And over 12 million renters spend over 50% of their income on rent. One of the things that had a lot of influence on housing and rent is immigration peaked at 3.3 million immigrants in 2023. All those folks needed a place to live. And then, as we know, real estate is the number one driver of wealth in the United States. And the wealth gap was really driven by real estate over the last few years, where the disparity between homeowners and renters. Homeowners now have 41 times the wealth as a renter. For us, that's our calling. We need to make sure renters become owners. But that's it. That's a very long news and notes. I appreciate it if you listen to any part of this. Tomorrow is book club, and I'm locked and loaded. I just finished 10X is Easier Than 2X. It's a meaty book. I'm going to try to get an overview in 15 minutes. I look forward to it. I'll be back tomorrow about this time. Enjoy your Saturday. Have a great weekend. Thank you.